Hey, what is up guys? I'm Xteria, and in this video, I'm gonna teach you guys probably one of the most strongest comps to play in the current patch of 14.1, which is playing Strategist of either Annie carry, Samira carry, or even Ziggz and Brand carry. From what I just said, this comp is very flexible. As you see from this clip here, I was playing Gray's reroll, and I was currently around 94 HP with above a 10 win streak. I lost the game just due to them playing this comp, since it was just that broken. So if you want to learn how to play this comp, we'll start with the basics here. And for our items, the one you want to prioritize is having a tier, since we're going to need a lot of tier items for Annie, as you see down here. After that, you can get swords for like Samira later, or you can make a Spear Shojin for Annie with it. If not, you can get a bunch of gloves to either make these gloves, tank items, or even Jewel Gauntlet if you have to, or just whatever you need it for. And after that, if you don't need the glove, any tank items are fine. In order to play this board, you must build either a Static Shiv or an Onyx Spark. You need at least one of the magic resist shred items, because if you don't, you're not going to do enough damage with Annie or any of the AP carries. And speaking of Annie, she's going to be your main carry, and if you have a Mana Zane, you can replace that with blue buff, but if you don't have Mana Zane, her best in slot is to have a Spear Shojin. This item is very versatile in the early game, since you can put it on almost any unit. Second to that, it will be blue buff, and the main reason why you don't first item slam this one is because not a lot of units can hold blue buff. So Shojin is a better item to use at the beginning. Then after that, you can get Nashor's Tooth. But if you can't get the best in slots, you can get other items for blue buff. You can get Mana Zane. If you can't get either of these, another Shojin is fine, or even an Adaptive Helm to gain more mana. And for Nashor's Tooth's case, if you can't get that to cast over and over, you can always build a Jewel Gauntlet to at least have some sort of damage, because it's not too bad on Annie. The reason why you want to build these for your best in slot is because you want her to keep casting over and over so she can throw out Tibbers. And Tibbers, funny enough, does physical damage, so you have a hybrid between magical and physical damage. Your main tank here is going to be Kobuko. You can put whatever tank items. These are the best that I've seen so far. And for Samira, she's going to be your AD carry, and you can put any of these items. It doesn't matter which one you put exactly, just as long as she has 80 items, it's fine. And then Viego can be your secondary AP carry, unless you have Bran or Ziggz or even like a Fiddlesticks or something if you need to. But for the most part, it's going to be Viego as your main secondary AP carry. And his best item is to have a Jewel Gauntlet and Hodge, so he can one-shot with his ability, and having Edge of Night so he can last a little bit longer. The best emblem you can choose is having a Strategist emblem, and the ones you want to put it on would be Samira or Viego, or even Kobuko is actually really good on him. For your opener, this one's like the default one you would see most of the time. There is a better and stronger opener that I'll show later, but this opener is just what you're going to hit most of the time, and it's pretty consistent. So the item holder for Annie here would be Zyra, and you want to slam a Shojin since it's the easiest to make, and on top of that is also the best for like almost any unit that can hold. Since blue buff is meant for mana pools of 40 and less, Shojin is good for any size mana pool. So that's the reason why we want to slam that first. Our main tank here most likely is going to be a Mundo, unless you get Alistair 2 first, either one's fine. And then a +1 unit for Street Demon, like Echo, is good as well. Then you can just throw in techies over time and then just hopefully try to win rounds with that, save enough HP as you can. Then we can roll for our default board here. In order to fit the whole comp, you need to hit level 9 for it, but in most cases, we're going to have to play the budget version. So if we cannot have a Kobuko as a main tank for the default board, we can play the budget version, which is Nico could be the main tank. Unless even then she's not level 2, then we can use Echo as the main tank. And then instead of having the Bruiser with Kobuko, we can have Annie in, because it gives us both Golden Ox, and it also gives us Bruiser, since Viego is a Golden Ox for Annie with the default board. We're going to keep the Mordekaiser and the Yuumi and the Ziggz in. So these three will be the core units we're going to use with these three core units. So we're just interchanging having the Samira, Viego, and Kobuko. Since they're 5-cost units, they're going to be harder to find. The unit that can replace having the third Street Demon is Bran, since he's also techies with Mordekaiser to get that debuff, since techie gives you that 10% reduction towards enemies, so they do less damage to you. And he's also a pretty stable unit himself. The tips I can give here is if you're going to play this board, you should always have at least 4 strategists or more, and always activate with 3 Street Demons. This will be the most powerful things you can do on the board, since you will have a lot of defense for strategists and damage, and Street Demon also gives you more damage on top of that. And then I keep saying Bran and Ziggz earlier, but if your board is too weak, you can also play them as carries. Say for example you cannot get Annie 2. Well then, you can just play Ziggz or Bran as the main carry if you have them level 2, and then if you have a blue buff, just throw it on Yuumi, that's fine. If you can find any of the 5-cost units like Viego, Samira, or Kobuko, just play them always. Even them level 1 is super impactful because they grant something to the board. Kobuko, for example, is just super broken. In all honesty, Kobuko 1 is way stronger than a Nico 2. This unit is just too powerful for whatever reason, so If you find Kobuko, just throw him out and put all the main tank on him. For Viego's case, he gains a +1 unit, so technically if you throw a Viego, you have 2 units on the board. And Samira in general is just strong because she gives more amp damage to Annie. Another unit you can throw in if you cannot find any of these other 5 costs is a Garen, and you can put the modifier from Garen, pick the strategist one and throw it on Annie or any of the carries you're using at the time because it will give them more damage. Then you can get rid of Garen later and then just play the default level 9 board. And cat board should always have Techie, like I said earlier, because it debuffs the enemy's board. Here's going to be the team builder so I can show you guys in depth on how to play certain units in certain situations. So like I said earlier, the default opener is going to be a Zyra, and you want to first item slam a Spear Shojin. Or if you can't do that, a static shift is also fine to slam, since you will need this anyways later. But for the most part, we're going to show Shojin first for the main carry item holder, and then we're going to play with Mundo. And since Mundo's a bruiser, we can throw in Alistair. And also Mundo is a street demon with Zyra, so having an Echo is actually really good for that. And positioning just depends on the street demon. For our main tank item, we can start off with is a Sunfire, is very powerful. Or any of like regular tank items such as like Bramble or even Warmongs is also fine as well. But Sunfire is good for combat early game since it does damage and it gives you decent tank stats. Over time from here on out, you could just play a techie unit like Seraphine, and hopefully you would come across Mordekaiser, and this should carry you all the way up to level 8. And since right here we only have 3 techie, you can just take out like Seraphine for a LeBlanc just to have the strategist activated. That's totally up to you. It's just play your strongest board until you can hit level 8. Another opener we can do, which is probably like one of the strongest ones, is having a Veigar with a Poppy, Shyvana, and then a +1 techie, like for example Zyra. Main reason why this is strong because when we hit level 5, we can easily play up to 4 techie, which is throwing any of like Seraphine, or you can throw in a Mordekaiser. Either one is fine, it doesn't really matter. And then you just put the damage item on Veigar and main tank items on Poppy. Unless Veigar's not level 2 and somehow you have a Zyra 2, then she would be your main carry at the time. Or a Seraphine 2, either one is also fine. It's just whatever you can hit level 2 at the back first. Make sure to have Poppy as the cyber boss. In order to activate that, she needs items, and then Veigar doesn't need items to activate that. That's the reason why Kobuko is very strong, is because when you have cyber boss on him, he's just super strong with the synergy. And then one more other opener I can show you real quick would be to have a Seraphine opener, because you can also play her as the item holder. Essentially, it's just Silas, Seraphine, Vi, and a +1 Anima squad. It doesn't matter which one, in all honesty. It could be a Lowy, it could be Vayne, just as long as you activate that trait, because Anima squad gives you a little bit extra tank for Silas. If he's level 2, just put main tank gloves on him. And then Seraphine is a really good damage item holder in the back as well. And just pick your Anima squad weapon and just over time play whatever you can, which is going to be your strongest, so you can keep winning rounds. Unless you're playing loose streak, then just play your weakest board and just save up money as much as you can. Okay, now to speedrun, the opener that I always play is Zyra with the main item holder, and then I play Mundo as the main tank. Then I play Alistair for the bruiser. On top of that, playing +1 street demon to activate that trait. Then I throw in the Seraphine or whatever tech unit I could find. Maybe even a Mordekaiser is also fine. Then I look for a Shaco at level 6 or some sort of Slayer unit. Maybe somehow I high roll a Zed. Then I throw out a Zed as well. Then level 7, I kind of skip this part, is because I usually hit level 8 at stage 4-1 to roll down for my board, since this comp is super contested. So in order to transition this board would be to have an Annie as the main item holder. Then I put Nico in as the main tank at the time. We keep Mordekaiser, upgrade to level 2, sell the Mundo, sell the Zed, keep the Echo. So we still have Street Demon, and we still have 2 Bruiser, 2 Golden Ox because we kept the Alistair, 2 Strategist now because of Nico and Echo, and then I throw in a Ziggz and a Yuumi. So this board is actually pretty decently strong, and then I could trade out a Zyra for a Brand if I could find that upgrade, because they basically both do the same thing. So that's why it's also good to keep the Zyra if you can't find a brand, and this is the board I will play. So now from here, we determine what level 2 carry are we going to play. If we have Annie 2, we just keep her as the main carry. If we don't, and we have none of these units level 2 besides Yuumi, then we just transfer the main carry items to Yuumi first. Same with Nico, for example. If she's not level 2 yet, and Mordekaiser's level 2, then we put main tank items on him. Unless for whatever reason he's not level 2 yet, then I make Echo as the main carry. So we just change out items until we have upgrades. But for the most part, I would have Mordekaiser 2 as my main tank most of the time. For example, if I find legendary units over time, say for example, I find a Samira. If I don't have a brand 2 yet, then I will just use Samira. But in the case of if I have Annie 2, because Amp activates, then we have her as the main carry. If she's not level 2, I would not put Samira in, and I will just pivot the Samira in my bench and just keep the brand in because it's more worth in the long run, since if he's level 2 and we have Techie activated, we have him as the main carry probably. This is fine. Or unless we have Annie's main carry still, that's also fine. At this point, you can hit level 9 from here, is also fine as well. But I like to interchange certain units depending on what level they are. So just keep the concept being flexible of what you can do. If we find a Kobuko, honestly, always drop the Alistair for Kobuko. Yes, we get rid of Golden Ox, but this unit is just gonna carry you so far that you can probably fast 9 with this. If you have enough upgrades on the board here, say for example you have an Annie 2 and a Ziggz or a Brand 2 with Kobuko 1, this should carry you to level 9 to be honest, since this board is actually super strong. But if I don't have Kobuko, it's fine. We could just keep the Alistair in. And another trick I like to do here is if we still have a Ziggz one, then I would trade him out for a Garen. The main reason why I do this, even though we dropped down to 3 strategists, is because we can make Annie into a strategist if she's level 2. Then we put the modifier from Garen to Annie and she would carry you all the way to 9 with the strategist modification on her. And then over time, when we play for our level 9 board, then we just trade out the Garen for Ziggz, and then trade out the Alistair for Kobuko, and then for our level 9 unit, it's gonna be a Viego. And the same thing with the Alistair thing, you can just trade out the Alistair for Viego as well. Just mix and match of what you can do. Think about what's gonna be your strongest board. And also a great tip is most of the time you might have to play Yuumi carry. That's fine as well. Before I forget and move on, you can trade this brand for a Samira, so you can amp your Annie with more little bit of damage with the amp that she gets. And then 80 items on Samira, then you're good to go. For the augments you want to auto click is blue battery. Even if you already have a blue buff, you can always put the other blue buff on Yuumi and it's fine. This augment just makes Annie super powerful. Other ones you can also auto click would be component buffet, so you can have perfect items, or Samitic uplink and mana flow to get more mana. And since we're going to need to hit level 9 as fast as we can and need the money to roll for our units, Raining Gold is the best for that. The ones that make your board stronger, 10,000 IQ, so it can make your strategist stronger, or you can get Coward Weaklings, which is really good for Ziggz and Kobuko, or Transference, which is really good for Annie because it makes amps do a little bit more. Good econ augments here would be like Dual Purpose or Leveling Up, so you can hit level 8 and 9 as fast as you can. Dual Purpose is kind of tricky because every time you level, it rolls your shop as well. So if you don't know how to use this augment, don't take it. Unless you feel like you want to use it, then go for it. And then we just get a bunch of items here like Big Grab Bag, or artifact items such as Portable Forge to maybe get that Mana Zane, or get good tank items, or get a decent 81 for Samira. Same thing with all that shimmers. You can pick up either Collector or you can pick up Gambler's Blade. They're both pretty good as well. The augment power order should always be econ first, unless you can't pick that. Then it's always item first, and then go back to econ if you can get it. If not, double item is also fine because you'll be strong enough to tempo to a place where you can probably win streak. And then third should always be combat. For example, blue battery is a good combat augment, so you can power up your board. The playstyle we want to play here is high tempo to fast 8. There is a loose streak style, which I'll show later. At stage 2-1, you want to level to 4, so you can play your strongest board that you can make. At stage 2-3, always make intervals of 10 gold. If you don't do this part, you're going to be poor for the rest of the game. If you have more than intervals of 14, 24, 34 gold, so when you come back from carousel, you're level 5 with the level 5 shop. If not, if you don't do this part, you can hit level 5 instead at stage 2-4. That works as well. At stage 2-6, always make more intervals again of 10 gold, 20, 30, 40 gold, or you could do this at 2-5. Either one's fine. Just always make intervals of 10 every single round if possible. At stage 3-2, or even a little bit earlier, hit level 6, and then stage 3-7, or even earlier again, you can hit level 7, and then stage 4-2, or even earlier, hit level 8 and roll for your board. The reason why I keep saying or even earlier is because you can keep tempoing and maybe 10 streak or even 15 streak if you level earlier, if your board's strong enough to do so. Now then, for the loose streak style is just don't level at all, either put in units or you don't. Each round, always make intervals at 10 gold as much as possible so you can make a lot of money. So around during Krugs, if you're too weak, you might have to level to beat the creep round. If not, it's fine as well, but just win the creep round no matter what. At stage 3-2, hit level 6, and then from here on, we play the regular like fast 8 tempo board, but in this case, we're going to be rolling a little bit, maybe like 10 gold for like level 2 units if you need it, because if you don't do that, we're going to bleed out to maybe like 20 HP at stage 4-2. At stage 3-7, hit level 7, and at stage 4-2, or even earlier, hit level to 8, and then roll for your board. So just be careful when you play loose streak. You want to be a little bit healthier at stage 3-2, or else you would just die right away. And that is it for the comp that you should spam, which is Strategist, Annie, and Samira carry. If you have any question, just let me know in the comment section down below. I'll try to answer to the best of my capabilities. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.